The city appears to be experiencing a typical day until a sudden traffic jam causes a commotion among the local drivers. A businessman has abruptly stopped his car in the middle of the road because he has suddenly gone completely blind for no apparent reason. When a group of people approach him for assistance, a man offers to drive the businessman home. However, as soon as they arrive and the businessman exits, the car is stolen. The thief departs, leaving the businessman stranded outside, but returns moments later, appearing to be someone else, to assist him in finding his apartment and offer to be his companion for the day. As soon as the businessman is safe at home and realizes that this time it won't work, he throws the thief out. The businessman's wife finally shows up a few hours later, and as soon as she finds out about her husband's blindness, she immediately takes him to see a specialist. The doctor permits them to bypass the line and enter the room first because it is an emergency. Unfortunately, no matter what tool the doctor employs to examine the businessman's eyes, he is unable to detect any damage or illness, indicating that the problem must be neurological. The doctor has never heard of anything like this before, but the businessman will need to visit a hospital and undergo some tests there. The doctor sees his other patients, which include a child, a woman wearing sunglasses, and a man wearing an eye patch, after the couple has left. The thief is evading the police while operating the stolen vehicle around town until he is forced to pull over because he has also lost his vision. He ultimately turns to the police for assistance, but when an officer takes him to his former residence, his ex-wife won't let him in. Later that night, a woman wearing sunglasses enters a hotel and approaches the bartender to order a drink before joining her client upstairs. Their first encounter goes well, but the afterglow is ruined when she starts to panic as her vision also turns white. All is well when the doctor and his wife have a lovely dinner at home, but when they awaken the following morning, he is also blind. Because the child is also present and blind, they call the hospital to alert them to a potential infection. They are believed. As cases of sudden blindness spread throughout the city, the government soon starts taking preventative measures. The authorities shut down the doctor's practice, and the physician is taken away and placed in quarantine. His wife decides to tell a lie and claims she is also blind in order to be quarantined with him because she can't bear the thought of being apart from him. The couple is brought to a closed-down asylum that is entirely empty and where no other medical professionals will be staying. To contact the outside guards, each ward has a phone, but it can only be used in an emergency, and each ward must have a representative as the only user. The thief, the woman with the sunglasses, the child, and the businessman soon follow. The doctor and his wife agree to keep her sight a secret, and the doctor's wife turns into a guide for everyone when they need assistance with tasks like using the restroom by pretending she explored and memorized the area when they arrived. The thief gets a little too handsy while following the woman wearing sunglasses on their first exit from the room, and she retaliates by kicking him in the leg. Because there isn't a first aid kit nearby, the doctor and his wife have to bandage the serious wound that her heel causes with a shirt. Later, the doctor's wife is unable to sleep due to concerns that the thief's leg might be infected and that she might also become blind. The doctor tries to get intimate with her, but she would rather go for a stroll to ease her anxiety. More people show up the following morning, and the businessman is reunited with his wife while the child bemoans the fact that his mother hasn't yet arrived. The guards don't cooperate when the doctor and his wife try to speak to them and ask for assistance with the thief's leg. Instead, they just point their weapons at them and force them to retreat to their room. They eventually get their first box of food, which is as bad as the food in a school or prison cafeteria and is also insufficient. The doctor's wife attempts to use the emergency phone to request additional food and a first aid kit, but no one answers it aside from an answering machine, where she leaves numerous messages. Weeks go by as more and more infected people are admitted to the asylum daily. Keeping order quickly becomes impossible, so the doctor's wife ties a cloth line between the wards as a guide, and the doctor is chosen as the representative of Ward 1. Since everyone is blind, they quickly lose interest in cleanliness and start to let their hair down and relieve themselves in the middle of the hallway. The businessman tries to stay upbeat by talking to his wife about their younger days, but she can't bear to hear about the good old days. The doctor's wife hears a noise one afternoon and finds the eye patch man carrying a radio that he has been secretly listening to. Everyone wants to know what's going on outside, so she persuades him to spread the word to them all. There aren't many stations left, but Eye Patch Man explains that he got the gist of it. In the first 24 hours, there were hundreds of cases, which the government easily resolved by sending the blind people to the asylum and ordering everyone else to stay at home. The general public then had to witness how experts from all over the world gathered for conferences where they simply stated their ignorance of the situation by using a lot of words. Soon, even the experts caught the disease, which then spread to other countries. People tried to leave their homes because they were tired of waiting inside, but soldiers were on patrol and detained anyone breaking the law. especially because car accidents kept happening and planes started to crash. The city descended into chaos. The city has turned into a desert as a result of citizens staying at home due to fear, and the government is doing nothing to address the situation because they are also blind. Days later, a sizable group of infected people are brought to the asylum, and the soldiers display their escalating brutality by shooting a man for accidentally crossing the center line. Everyone rushes inside by pushing each other carelessly and even breaking the doors as soon as they hear the gunshot. The worst part is that no soldiers appear to collect the body. The doctor's wife asks for a shovel in the hopes that they can bury it themselves, and the soldiers provide it without leaving their towers in the middle of the yard. The doctor's wife asks for directions while continuing to act blind, and the soldiers play with her until she finds the shovel and gives them the finger. Since 2 more people have been shot, the doctor is attempting to coordinate the burials with the representatives of the other wards while also bringing up the issue of one of the wards taking more food than their fair share. The bartender grows tired of listening to the doctor act as the leader and declares himself the ruler of Ward 3. His first directive is for his subjects to eat as much as they want before they are asked to assist with the bodies. Later, the doctor's wife visits the thief, who has a fever as a result of a serious infection in his leg. The thief suddenly threatens her as he reveals that he knows she isn't blind, causing the wife to run back to her husband and eventually have a breakdown. Despite her best efforts, she is unable to remain supportive. The thief drags his body outside and lets the soldier shoot him because he can no longer take the pain and believes that waiting for things to end naturally would only be an exercise in agony. The doctor's wife feels guilty and starts to consider telling everyone the truth, but he forbids her from doing so and also expresses his concern that their relationship has changed to resemble that of a nurse and a patient rather than a marriage. Later, the accountant, a fellow resident of Ward 3 who has been blind since birth and thus has a better understanding of how to live in this situation, assists the bartender in locating the asylum's administrative office. The bartender uses the PA system to declare that he will become the new ruler of the entire asylum and that the first new rule will be that everyone will have to pay for their food. The bartender reveals his secret card. He was able to keep a handgun with him when he was brought to the asylum. This rule is not well received, and soon there is chaos near the food storage as everyone fights to get access. He sends everyone away with a warning shot, seizes control of the food storage, declares that it will be guarded all day, and threatens to shoot anyone trying to steal. Some people think about not participating, but it's too risky when the adversary is armed. The doctor's wife starts taking anything she can from the patients in her ward, including their wedding rings and jewelry, as well as whatever they can find in their pockets. She does, however, keep a pair of scissors that she found in a woman's bag. The child has nothing to offer, but the sunglasses woman has adopted him and pledges to provide for him. By touching the items they bring, the accountant at the food storage uses his experience to judge their quality. However, regardless of how expensive the jewelry is, the bartender only allots a few boxes per ward and intimidates anyone who dared to voice dissatisfaction. People are forced to share one-person meals, and the doctor withdraws because he is not in the mood to maintain his leadership kindness at this time. A woman in sunglasses approaches him to comfort him and explains that there is nothing he can do to stop a gun. As a result, the two of them end up making out on the floor. While they are finishing, the doctor's wife comes across them. Rather than making a scene, she informs the sunglasses wearer that she is able to see, asks her to keep the information a secret, and then lets her own guilt take care of the rest. A week later, the bartender makes the announcement that they will accept service from women in exchange for food once everyone in the asylum has run out of means of payment. The soldiers explain that they have given them everything they have, so rationing is up to them after the doctor's wife goes outside to ask why new rations haven't arrived. A discussion about the best course of action starts in Ward 1, but the doctor intervenes to clarify that they are not in charge of forcing the women to do anything. There won't be any criticism or peer pressure, so anyone who wants to volunteer can do so. After much deliberation, one of the women finally steps forward, encouraging the doctor's wife and the wearers of sunglasses to follow suit. The businessman tries to stop his wife from going and doesn't want her to, but she insists that she shouldn't be treated differently and goes anyway. The women have the worst night of their lives in the food storage room after the accountant comes to pick them up. The men are violent and vicious, and one of them abuses the women to the point where she is killed. The women have returned with the body in their hands, prepared to clean her up and bid her the proper farewell, so the doctor's wife asks for someone else to go and pick up the food in the morning. Later that day, the accountant checks another ward for additional volunteers. He even has the audacity to visit Ward 1 to congratulate the volunteers on a job well done, despite the fact that one of them barely moved. The doctor's wife tells him that it appears they didn't know one of the women had been dead and they still used her, leaving him speechless. The doctor's wife finally snaps under the pressure and takes the scissors to the storage room where everyone is preoccupied by the ward 2 women. She drags the girls behind her after killing the bartender with the scissors without thinking twice as the accountant realizes what has happened and grabs the gun, but none of his shots connect. The doctor's wife announces on her way out that she will now be collecting the food because more men will die if it isn't released. The doctor is concerned that this will spark a war, and he is correct. Ward 3 barricades the area and continues to withhold the food. Ward 1 prepares to fight and reclaim what is rightfully theirs, but one of the women decides to exact revenge before they can do anything. It turns out that she has been carrying a lighter in her pocket the entire time, and she uses it to enter Ward 3 undetected and light a fire. Before panic sets in, the doctor's wife leads them out of the building as the flames quickly spread and claim the lives of numerous men. Interestingly, no one is shot because the guards are no longer stationed in their towers. They are finally free because neither the doors nor the windows are locked. As they travel downtown and find that society has fallen apart, the doctor, his wife, the kid, the eye patch man, the sunglasses woman, the businessman, and his wife decide to stick together. The city has turned into a post-apocalyptic wasteland where the few survivors wander around trying to survive, attacking one another if they even have the slightest suspicion that the other person might be carrying food in their pockets. Some animals are even eating dead bodies. The doctor and his wife depart from the group while they remain hidden inside a bar and visit the nearby market to see if they can find any food. The few items that are still on the shelves are being seized by the crowd, but the doctor's wife can see them and manages to locate a set of stairs that will lead her to a storage room while the doctor gathers clothing. The wife attempts to leave after filling a few bags, but as she does, robbers jump on her after hearing the noise the items in her bags make. Thankfully, the doctor hears this and responds by shoving everyone away and using himself as a shield between the crowd and his wife as they flee the building. When they are sufficiently away, the wife stops for a moment to gather herself while the doctor returns to get the clothes he had left behind on their way out, and a cute dog seizes the opportunity to approach and make friends with her. Everyone is shocked when it suddenly starts to rain, so the wife brings the dog inside a church to wait for her husband under a dry roof. A priest won't stop spreading the word of God despite the fact that the church is extremely crowded and all the statues have their eyes covered. Since they haven't had access to clean water in a very long time, people outside are taking advantage of the opportunity to gather water and wash their bodies. The dog follows them and becomes their new companion as the doctor returns with the clothes and picks up his wife to rejoin the group. The group eats some rations inside the bar and decides to spend the night there to get some rest. The next morning, they carefully make their way through the city to the doctor's and his wife's home, which they will all be able to use. The group eventually establishes a routine after that. They share the doctor's clothes and clean the apartment under the wife's watchful eye. They only leave the house to find food, collect water, and wash when it rains. Eye Patch Man says he wants to stay with them always because they've become a family, and the businessman's wife finally gets back together with him and shares some stories from their early years. The doctor and his wife are reunited, and since she is no longer overburdened with stress, she agrees to get intimate with him once more. Weeks later, as everyone is getting ready for breakfast, the businessman yells out that his blindness has vanished just as suddenly as it had arrived and that he can see once more. Everyone begins to rejoice as they realize their bodies can fend off the illness and blindness is only temporary, restoring hope for their futures.